WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has appeared in a London court where he appeared to struggle to recall his name and age before the judge denied his application for more time to prepare his defence. It's his first public appearance in months as he seeks to fight extradition to the United States, where he's facing 18 charges, including conspiring to hack government computers. Louise Bennett is from the Bring Assange Home campaign and joins us now. Louise Bennett, what is your reaction this morning to that judge's ruling?
Oh, hello, Fiona. Well, look, I think everyone's not surprised in many ways, but I still think that the legal team had hoped that there would be a fairer decision made yesterday. Their request was a routine delay in a hearing to gather evidence, particularly as new information comes to light. As Julian Assange said in court yesterday, he's battling a superpower with unlimited resources who have had 10 years to prepare their case, and he hasn't been given any access to a computer at all. He hasn't had access to legal documents until last week, I believe just the day before the case management hearing was to occur. He was given a file of documents labelled June that he could read. So that's the day before the case management hearing. So you can see that it must be an incredible weight for him to have to deal, and his legal defence team to have to deal with that.
Assange had complained in court that he couldn't think straight. I mentioned there that he struggled to state his name and date of birth.
Yeah.
What have you been hearing anything about his mental state?
Look, we get dribs and drabs. Obviously, it's a tight security situation there. I know that Nils Melzer, the Special Rapporteur for Torture for the United Nations, said in his report that he hasn't seen, in 20 years of working with victims of war and violence and political persecution, he hasn't seen a group of democratic states ganging up so deliberately to isolate, demonise and abuse a single individual for such a long time, with so little regard for human dignity and the rule of law. So you can imagine that that sort of torture would take an effect. I mean, I had hardly any sleep last night and I'm having trouble thinking straight. So you can imagine how that must affect you. So I can't even begin to grasp how he would manage dealing with a superpower, putting all of their efforts and resources into trying to convict him of exposing their crimes.
Given the fact that Assange's lawyers were unsuccessful in their attempts just to get this 3-month delay, what chance do you think Julian Assange actually has in fighting this extradition case?
Well, look, ahead of the trial, the case management hearing yesterday, Amnesty International came out with a statement saying that he must not be extradited to the US. They said that British authorities must acknowledge the real risk of serious human rights violations Julian Assange would face if he was sent to the USA, and they must reject the request. So, look, we're getting more and more politicians coming out in Australia saying this is outrageous. Andrew Wilkie, Barnaby Joyce, people from across the board, but people do need to put pressure on their MPs, because this isn't just about Julian Assange. This is about press freedom. With the movement in Australia here, it's impossible. The Australian government should be really concerned that Julian Assange would be charged with offences about publications in circumstances where there's not, where he wasn't even in the US, and it represents a direct threat to any Australian journalist who publishes material that embarrasses the US. So people need to speak to their MPs, put more pressure on the government. He's an Australian citizen. Australia would step in if he was being held in Iran or Egypt. Just because it's happening in the West doesn't mean that it's not corrupt.
Okay, Louise Bennett, thanks for your time this morning.
Thanks so much for having me, Fiona.
Louise Bennett is from the Bring Assange Home campaign.